A very interesting Najdorf camp where we dive very deep into the important strategic and positional ideas in the Najdorf variation. You will see that after completing the camp, you will be ready to play Najdorf yourself. And in today's lectures, Grandmaster Papaioannou will explain many interesting ideas that will be quite important for you. There will be three lectures today, 30 minutes of a break between the lectures, and we finish the camp tomorrow. So, without wasting further time, I would like to wish you to have nice lectures and to enjoy a lot. Yanis, welcome. You can start.
Thank you, Grigor, and let's start. So, welcome everybody on day 2 of the Najdorf deep, or if I may say, very deep understanding. The first lecture of today will be the second lecture that is devoted, the second in total, that is devoted in positions with short castling for both sides. And here we go. There are still several things to be discussed. So let's see. Here, a6, bishop e2. There are several ways for white to go for short castling, of course. He can play g3, h3 combined with short castling, a4, bishop e2, bishop d3, and so on, and even bishop e3. So bishop e2, e5. We are mainly discussing here the Najdorf setup with d6 and e5. Later in the session with opposite castling, we will also see Scheveningen setup, which is more forceful and more important. So bishop e7, when you see bishop e2, you go bishop e7, and white castles and black castles to end. The move rook e1 was played. Here, the main move is bishop e3, but white plays rook e1. This is a playable move 100%. Now, black should not get carried away. White plays a semi-useful waiting move. Black must follow with the typical Najdorf ideas. In other words, he must play typical moves. I see several players, when they come across one move which they don't know, an insignificant move like this rook e1, they are losing it. They start seeing ghosts. They start imagining threats, positional and tactical, and they start playing strange moves. There is basically one good move for black here. And which move is that? Who would like to suggest? Just one good move. Which move is that? A Najdorf player should not only play this move, he should play this move fast. Yes? Do not play moves that are atypical. The only good move for black here is bishop e6. There is absolutely no other good move. Let's comment on all the other moves. So, first of all, I try this move. No, b5 is very premature. Here, white will typically strike with a4, and after this, he will jump in, and he will have a very good game. No thanks. b5 can be played after good development. So, another move to be examined, knight c6. Knight c6 is not a very good move. It's not a huge mistake, but in the Najdorf, the knight doesn't go to c6. This is some rare version of the Richter-Rauser Sicilian. h6, nothing to say about this move. That's a non-standard move. You don't play h6 in the Najdorf. After this, would we play h6? No. Queen e8, it's a non-standard move, just like h6. Rook e8, this is not a bad move necessarily, but it's not the most useful move, yes? So, knight bd7, that's a bad move. Let's clarify this one. Knight bd7 is a good idea in such positions. Here, intending to go knight c5, we have already played queen c7. Imagine our queen on c7. We want to play knight c5 and attack the pawn on e4. Now knight b d7 is a mistake. Who will explain why? That's a mistake which can be punished by white. How should white continue in this position? It is important to clarify things because we need more experience and more examples. So after knight b d7, white will play a4. And now black is much worse. If I could put my bishop on e6 somehow, black would have a perfect position. If I could play this illegal move, everything is perfect for black, and this is basic theory. But I cannot. And if I play b6, we switch to these positions. Remember, we discussed these positions where white will go bishop g5, knight d2, bishop c4. The same can be done with the knight from b3. It can also go here. So, for example, bishop g5, and this is coming here, and this is coming here, and white is already much better whenever black disconnects his knight, then this is the immediate punishment. White takes here, and he will play bishop d5 or knight d5. Personally, I prefer knight d5, but it doesn't matter. Bishop d5 here, white is immediately better. So let's go back once again. You see, players without much experience, we need more training in the Najdorf. I played this move, rook e1, which is nothing special, and several players got confused. So what do I play here almost without watching? My next move is bishop e6, then knight b d7, and then I open my eyes to see what is happening. Yes, black's plan is bishop e6 and knight b d7. There are very rare exceptions, which we will discuss now. For example, rook e1, bishop e6 is the only good move here, natural and good move. And what if white plays f4, for example? This is simply a bad move. We will take it, and we will play knight c6. And in this position, white's rook doesn't really belong on the e file, but on the f file. But let's even say that white won a tempo. He developed his bishop in one move on f4 in this quiet position. It doesn't play any role. Yes, we have this natural good position for black, and we play very good. So again, rook e1, bishop e6 is coming. h3, bishop e6 is coming. a3, bishop e6 and knight b d7. Here, bishop e6 and knight b d7. He played something I didn't even see. Bishop e6 and knight b d7. Very good. Now, will I ever break this bishop e6 and knight b d7? Yes, as we will see soon. So, rook e1 was played. Of course, we play bishop e6. And in this position, white played a4. Now, black has two good moves, and we will discuss the second one. The first one needs absolutely no thinking, but absolutely no thinking. If you want to play a move in 1 second, which move will be that for black? You want to play a move in 1 second without thinking at all. The move is, of course, knight b d7 and nothing else, with typical Najdorf play. However, here comes an important and very deep idea, since we are discussing deep ideas in the Najdorf, and even less deep, but also deep ideas. When white plays a very early and not so careful a4 move, and our knight is still on b8, we have another fantastic idea, which if the position is right, and we will discuss which position is right, this is offering us immediately very good play in several versions of the Najdorf. So besides knight b d7, which is a very good move, there is an even better move maybe. The move is knight c6 this time. However, knight c6 is working only when the pawn is here, and we want to put our knight on b4. This knight is surprisingly secure on b4. Do not be afraid to put it there, because as we will see, for example, after bishop f3, we go knight b4, and on several occasions, we want to play this move, d5. So this knight is not in trouble. Again, he played a4. Can I go here by myself? No, I cannot go to b4. He will play a3. But when I see the move a4, I can play knight c6 always. No, not always. We will clarify when. Here is a position where I can play knight c6 and get a wonderful position by controlling the d5 square from b4. For example, he plays bishop f3. We go knight b4 with very good play, or he plays bishop e3, just like it happened in this game. Again, we play knight b4. This is a fantastic idea. There are several games that I have in my mind, and I'm sure hundreds of other games where black could play this idea and get a great game, but he didn't know this idea, and neither did white, and that's why he played a wrong move order. So our knight stands perfectly on b4. We would like to continue with such moves, rook c8, and of course, this move is always in our mind. For example, bishop f3 was played, and rook c8. How about this and bishop b6? This is hardly ever good for white, or let's say threatening in the Najdorf. Indeed, he played a5, and black played queen d7. h3 was played. Here is a nice idea. We want to play this at some moment, yes, with very good play. Possibly black could even play this at once, but queen d7 is good. And now, if white is inspired to play this move, threatening the knight, trying to force us to go back to c6, there is a nasty surprise waiting for white. How should black continue here? Let's see. How should black continue here? Very good. So, first of all, this is not working because he will take here. Still, we have a good position, but it's not the best move. We have this fantastic idea. Here, we stop the clocks right away. That's the end of the game. Knight takes c2. We are threatening pawns, rooks, bishops, and after taking, we take here immediately. We won one pawn and one exchange. That's game over. So let's go back once again. Knight c6, intending knight b4. There is nothing white can do about it. Is black better here? No, I would say it is equal, unclear, with chances for both sides, but it is definitely white who needs to be careful, and that's why we are discussing this idea. For example, bishop f3. Let's suppose that he plays queen d2. There is no real way for white's queen to target our knight on b4. So one move to examine is this right away, d5. I am not afraid of this move. Look, here, supposedly doing something, but I will play this. Knight takes, f takes, and I think black is winning a piece. I think white can resign here. So let's go back. Queen d2, for example. d5 is a move to be considered. White has to take it. And now knight f takes to d5. I can also take with this knight. Knight takes. And after this, we will calculate both moves. Queen takes d5 and knight takes d5 look very good to me. It's a matter of calculation. Let's say I take with the knight. For example, he goes here because if I capture the bishop, black will be much better with a pair of bishops here. And let's say we play this move. Bishop takes, queen takes, and black should be better in this position. Very good. So the powerful knight c6 and knight b4 idea. You can see it in several versions of the Najdorf, as we will now see. So knight c6. Now let's clarify something, please. I put it back and I try another move. I try bishop e3. Sorry, bishop e3. When I see bishop e3, I play bishop e6. When I see any other move, I play bishop e6 again. So bishop e6, and now he tries a4. Several players, if you look at the database, you will see this move order trying to reach the so-called Karpov variation. You will see this mistaken move order. The correct idea for white is first queen d2. Now knight c6 is pointless. The knight cannot stay on b4. We have to play knight bd7, and only now white goes a4, and we reach the Karpov variation, which we will examine later today. So let's go back once again. Bishop e3, bishop e6, and he goes a4. Again, this is a bad move, and after knight c6, now white has to be very careful. But imagine a player who allows this very clever and very detailed and sensitive move, knight c6. It means that he doesn't really know much theory. So, for example, queen d2, and our knight stands perfectly on b4. There is absolutely no way for white to do something against this knight. For example, he plays here, threatening this knight. Look, I just go d5. He plays c3. First of all, here I can even take. But even if I couldn't take, I just go back. And white has destroyed his position. What is this? He moves his pieces backwards and we strike in the center. Black is much better. Very good. So, can white play here? Well, this is in fact a gambit. We can take here and take on a5. Now, there is some compensation. After this and knight c6, there is some compensation, but still black is doing very well. However, black is not forced to collect this pawn. Black can also try this move, rook here, intending again knight b4. For example, bishop b6, we already know that this is hardly ever good. We go queen d7. We have this move in our mind, and we also have another very, very typical move in our minds. Listen, please. One mistake for white brings the other, as we say. Yes, this is a very important move to be considered. Possibly it is already the best move, and we want to play d5. However, when you see a bishop on b6 and our queen has moved to d7 and it is our turn, this is a very important idea to consider. Look at this move. Bishop d8. That's a very, very good idea to consider. Very often, this move is giving the advantage to black. White cannot allow this move, of course. After a takes b6, his pawn on b6 will be very weak. So he cannot really go back this time because we will capture it and we will capture it here. There is no compensation. He has to take it, and now we take with the rook, and now this pawn is very weak. And for example, here black stands very well. Even this can be considered. Look, bishop takes and knight d4. Even this idea can be considered. And anyway, black is doing very, very well. Another idea to be considered is maybe even this. I want to take here and take on a5. And after knight d5, I will take it and I will play knight e7. I'm not so happy with this continuation. Not so happy. But anyway, bishop d8 is very good and we are standing very well. So, when can I play? Are we done with that? No, not yet. When can I play this knight c6 move? First of all, we need to see a4. After a4, we will start examining the move. So here, bishop e6, a4, knight c6 is very powerful. However, let us now try something else. So let's suppose we are in this position and white plays bishop f3. The first move for black is beyond any question. How should black continue here, please? The first move is beyond any question. Bishop e6, and that's it. This is how we play the Najdorf. Bishop e6, very good. And he goes a4. When I see the move a4 and my knight is still on b8, I will consider the move knight c6. However, here we go. This time knight c6 is inaccurate. Why? Because this pawn is protected by the bishop and white can play this move. So when I want to play knight c6, I should examine whether knight d5 by white, I play knight c6, knight d5 by white is good. Indeed, here this is good. I cannot go to b4, I will lose my knight. So I need to go back. And in this position, we lost two tempi. How should white continue here, by the way? White has some advantage, but the game is not over. There is still a lot of play. How should white continue in this position? One move can be bishop e3, but I want a better move for white. Who will suggest? Which is a very good move for white here? Let's see. Is it c4? Is it some other move? If white plays c4, black may consider a5. In fact, the best move for white should not miss his chance. The best move for white is to gain space and fix our structure. This is his best move. a5. We will play knight bd7, and now white can consider all sorts of moves like c4, bishop here, bishop d2, and so on. And he wants to push these pawns little by little, c4 and b4, and white stands quite well. Why? Because his tempi are good. Yes, we moved knight c6, knight b8 back. So let's go back once again. We castle. He plays bishop e3. I go bishop e6. And he plays a4. Can I play knight c6 here? The answer is yes, because after knight c6, this move is not working. I will simply capture this pawn. Is there some compensation after this? Well, a little bit. Yes, I will say, of course, white will not resign here, but we can take with the pawn, even with the queen. We can take, and we have one pawn for very little compensation. One thing is for sure, white will keep on fighting, of course. Very good. So this is the criteria. So if we go back after castling bishop e3 and bishop e6, I will examine knight c6 if I see a4. If I don't see a4, there is no knight c6. So he goes queen d2. Can I be cunning and play this move, waiting for a4, knight c6? Well, you can probably do it, but this is a loss of time. Objectively here, we must play the best move, knight bd7, and after a4, everything was done correctly by both opponents, and we continue with the Karpov variation. Does this idea apply in other lines as well? Yet, yes, it does, in the whole Najdorf. For example, he plays here. I go e5. He plays this move, bishop e7. Bishop g2, castles, castles, and I play bishop e6. So he plays a4. I need to consider knight c6. Is knight c6 a good move? What do you think? Is knight c6 a good move or not? The answer is very clear. Knight c6 is not a good move because the e4 pawn is protected. This is a bad move. We are not losing or anything, but after knight d5, if he doesn't play now knight d5 and I put it here, everything is perfect. White needs to play knight d5 now, right now. So here white is better. This is not possible. I'm losing my knight. This is very risky. First of all, he can go here and our knight on a5 all of a sudden is in trouble for no good reason. So the safest option is to go back. But what is this knight c6, knight b8? Yes, we are losing some tempi, and objectively we have to be worse. Very good. So this was not a right example, but here is a right example. Bishop here, and in this position, white, after bishop g2, is afraid of b5, which is a playable move, and he decides to play a4. Is this going to happen for sure? No, but we are examining. We don't lose anything. So after a4, I will examine knight c6 to see if it is any good. The answer is yes, it is good. Knight c6 is very good. This is not working. There is very little bit of compensation. For example, here, threatening bishop b6, but I go knight c5. There is not enough compensation. There is just a little bit, yes. And after playing bishop g2, yes, indeed, white is threatening to play knight d5, but it is black to move. Black will move knight b4, castles, castles, and now no matter what, black has a very good position. For example, after this, both captures are interesting. This capture is interesting, and even this capture is interesting, followed by a5. Sorry, here we don't even need a5. Here we can play this, as it seems, and black is better. So with our knight on b4, we have very, very good play. For example, he plays this. I can play bishop e6. Look, this is a natural move. I would like to distort his coordination a little bit. I would like to play here, because if he plays f3, then the bishop from g2 does not control the center. Look here, the bishop supports e4, controls d5, and so on. After this, the bishop does not control d5. So here black stands very well. Black is immediately better. So I will consider bishop g4. By the way, after this, in this particular position, we can take and take on c2. But let's suppose that this was not possible. I will still play bishop g4, and after bishop here, now I will come back to e6, and I see a very unnatural placement of the white bishop. Black is doing really very well, and of course, if black tries to do something like this, threatening the knight, this is absolutely nothing. Let me tell you that even this move is very good for black. But how will black continue here? He will strike with d5. And black is taking over the initiative. Look at black's very natural moves, and look at white's unnatural moves. What is this bishop doing on f3? The knight back to e2, and so on. Very good. So this idea is important in order to gain a very good position. This idea can happen even in other versions. For example, in this line. Previously, I played knight b3. Look, I go here, and he goes a4 in this position. So look, I go knight c6 now, since there is no knight b5. He goes here, and knight b4. Again, black stands very, very well. We discussed this idea. So rook e1, bishop e6 is for sure. a4, when I see a4 with my knight on b8, I want to consider knight c6. Only then I will consider it. Yes, here I quickly understand that this is a good move because there is no knight d5. And against any other move, I will play knight b4. So bishop e3 was played in this game, and knight b4. Only the engine can keep this position. h3 was played, and h6 is a bad move now, according to the engine. Black should have played here. Look at this wonderful idea. And bishop f5, super high level play by the engine. Here and e4, and we win this pawn back, and black is much better. Very good. Let us check another one or two games here. So a very nice game by two Greek masters of the past. This game was played in 1990. Let's see. Bishop e2, e5. Here, I see bishop e2, I go here. Bishop e3, let's play the most accurate move. When you see bishop e3, better play bishop e6, unless there is something concrete which you already know, some other move. Yes, the automatic move is bishop e6, which was played by black. Now, I would like us to comment on the move knight bd7 and the move knight c6. Let's comment on these two moves. What will happen after knight bd7 and what will happen after knight c6? None of these moves is losing, obviously, but are they good? Knight bd7 and knight c6. I have this position and I'm thinking, should I play just for a change knight bd7 or knight c6 to check my opponent? It looks good. Let's see. So I agree with you about knight bd4. There is no question about how white should play after knight bd7, But after knight c6, so after knight bd7, which is a weak move, white will go a4. Black would have a normal position here. I will go queen c7 and knight c5 attacking the pawn on e4. Can I do the same here? No, I cannot do the same. Let's clarify that. Because white will take it. And here, very, very, very important, how will white continue in this position? He has a move that is begging to be played, a move that is absolutely necessary. White needs to play this move. The move is bishop c4. Very good. Before black gets this wonderful post controlling the whole board, or maybe before he plays even this. So bishop c4, and white is better. So I'm going back and I'm explaining why knight bd7 is a bad move, because white will play a4, and we just explained that the plan with queen c7, knight c5 doesn't work because white has his knight on b3. If I put it here, black has a more or less normal position. He will play queen c7 and knight c5, and he will have good play, very good. However, after knight c6, which is also inaccurate, nobody told me the move that looks very good for white. Can he play a3? He can, but he doesn't need it. This is not a threat anyway. Yes? Can he castle short? Yes, that's a good move. White can castle short, but the question is left for next move. What will you play next? So there is another very interesting move, which is this one, knight d5. Look what happens. He is clearly threatening bishop b6, so there is no other move. I have to take it. And after this is very dangerous. He always goes knight d2. So I need to go to play the safest option and to play knight b8. However, here we are playing a typical Najdorf position where black has played knight c6, knight b8. This cannot be very good. Okay. So after bishop e3, the most accurate move is bishop e6. Castle short. Now we can castle or knight bd7. Let's castle first. And here white played a4. Can we play knight c6 now? Let's see. If we are lazy, we play knight b7. This is for sure. If we are lazy, if we play bleach, or if we don't want to risk at all, we play knight b7. But we are missing chances to get a good position and to punish the opponent who is ignoring us. So the answer is very clear. Black can play knight c6. It is a very, very good move. If you ask your engine, it will suggest knight c6. Of course, what we are saying is accepted by the engine, yes. However, what is the difference? The engine is a bit misleading because practically black is already better here against a human who obviously doesn't know what he's doing and he allowed knight c6. But the engine will defend perfectly with white and it will keep the balance, yes? But for humans, be very positive. So no matter what, our next move is going to be knight b4, most likely. For example, after this, knight b4. That's why we came here. And if this, I will examine the lazy option, but look, this is probably the best once again, and here. Very good. So if he plays a5, now maybe this is a bit premature. I'm not so sure he will go here and now d5. Maybe this is a bit premature. So what can I do? I can play queen d7 or rook c8 first. Here. Very good. So after knight c6, the move f3 was played. No, this is not a good move. This is losing a lot of energy, weakening the dark squares. And now the bishop on e2 is a bit handicapped. The move is, of course, knight b4, which black played because he knew exactly what he was doing. And after a5, there are two basic moves to consider, d5 and rook c8. Rook c8 was played. Maybe d5 is an even better move, or maybe not, but this is already very good. And after queen d2, it's about time to strike with d5. Black has a big advantage. Bishop b6 is irrelevant, queen d7. And here, knight f takes on d5. He takes again, threatening this bishop. Bishop f2 and knight f4 with a huge advantage for black. Let's see what happened here. He takes the queen. He plays this very, very nice move because let's see what is happening if c3. I guess if c3, we can take it and win a pawn like this. This is one way to go. After c3, there is another idea. Look, we can proudly go back because there is a problem with this knight on b3. How is white going to defend? If he goes knight c1, he is losing a lot of energy and we will finally capture the bishop. Very good. So this move was played and an exchange was lost and black won the game very easily. This now is the simplest solution. Yes, remember what we learned as kids, as chess kids. When you are up material, exchange pieces. Yes, very good. Black won a fine game. Let's check another game here by the best female Greek player of all time, Stavroula Tsolakidou. Let's see what happened. Shall I play this move order in the Najdorf? The answer is do whatever you like, be my guest. I don't like to play knight f6. I just take on d4. The idea of this move order is to avoid this variation. Look, here and f3. Black wants to avoid this variation, which is nothing special. And he plays knight f6, and now this cannot transpose. On the other hand, white has some extra options like this one, for example, which is still not a great deal. So if you want, you can play knight f6. Personally, I prefer to play cd4. So anyway, here and a6. And g3 was played. In general, let's clarify one thing. White played g3 or let's say h3 or whatever. Should I choose e5 or should I choose e6? He played g3, for example, yes? Or pretty much any other move. There are some positions where e6 is forced, but there are several other positions where I can choose between e6, which is the Scheveningen setup, and e5, which is the classical Najdorf setup. Yes, which one to choose? It depends on your taste, but let's describe them. With d6, e5, black gets a more solid position without great attacking chances for black, neither for himself. As a general, very general rule. With e6, the game tends to be a lot more tactical, a lot more aggressive for both sides. So we said this about the taste of the players. More aggressive is e6, more counterplay, more active play for both sides. More static is d6, e5. And now let's clarify which one is objectively better. E5 is almost always objectively better or a bit better. Yes? So that's a very, very general rule, of course. If you like e6, play e6. In most cases, e5 is safer and better. So let's continue. e5 here, knight f3. This is a rare line, knight f3. And the idea is this. Look at this strange idea. Knight h4, knight f5, knight e3. Or even, look, knight h4, knight g2. Who would think that we will fianchetto the knight? And knight e3, that's the idea. So black played bishop e7, that's a playable and good move. And knight c6, this is an exception. Knight c6 is a playable move and it's an exception. So here, black played g6. Both sides have pluses and minuses. Black is not really worried about a knight d5 move, which would normally punish the knight c6 on c6 move. However, the knight on h4 will always be hanging. So, for example, after this, our tempi will be equal. Let's say I go here, but you also have to go back. And so the tempi are more or less equal. So g6, castles and castles. This is an interesting unclear move position. Let's clarify something. When we say unclear position, it can be objectively slightly better for white, or it can be objectively slightly better for black. If you let the engine think for 20 hours, for example, it will give an evaluation which may not be equal, yes? However, practically, it's unclear with chances for both sides. This unclear evaluation is referring exclusively to human players, yes? Not to computers. Very good. So a4 was played already. After a4, we start considering one very specific move. But black played another very interesting move. Bishop g4. I really like this kind of move whenever it is possible. White played knight f3. If white plays f3, then everything is misplaced. What is this knight doing on h4? If we want to avoid knight d5, or if we want to be able to capture with our knight on d5, we can even consider this move. And of course, after bishop f3, if he plays here, we go back bishop e6, not back to c8. We started with the bishop on c8, yes? So we go back and we disturb white's coordination. So this move was played, knight f3, black played rook c8. This is again a useful move. h3, bishop e6. And here, it is about time for black to play knight b4. So here is a question. If bishop b5 check will be covered. No, this is about a Najdorf, Open Sicilia. So knight b4, black controls the d5 square in a very effective way. Rook e1 was played, queen c7, some natural Najdorf moves here, and black gets a fine game, king g7. It doesn't mean that black is winning or anything, but I like this move now, h6, getting done with all the the pressure. And h5, black stands very well. Later, she went on to win the game. I think we said enough about this knight before idea. We can now see it and play the move knight c6 after an a4 move, a careless a4 move, if our opponent allows it. Let us now switch to some very common strategy. We have talked again in the past about this kind of strategy. So let's see. We are still talking about positions where both sides are castling. Here, bishop e6 is not the most accurate move. In this position, white will play f4, and we need to either allow f5 or take on f4, allowing him to develop in one move. Black played queen c7, this kind of play, as Fischer used to play, allowing f5 and going bishop c4. This is considered less good in our days, but why did Black, who is a good player, play this move order, this strange move order? Because the game was played in 1977. That's why. So, a4. What makes e5? There is a question. First move e5 more popular than the Najdorf. Well, that's a very general question. Let's say that e4 first move, the Spanish, is more immune to computer preparation. It is less active, so they do not less dangerous, so they are not scared about each other preparation. Yes, for example, for Carlsen to keep on playing the Najdorf all the time while he can beat everybody in a quiet position of e5, keep playing the Najdorf all the time would be totally wrong, unnecessary risk. That's the answer. So let's see, king h1, there, keep on fighting and fighting. And finally, Black took on f4, and he played knight e5. This is a very typical position in the Najdorf. You can get this type of position from several different move orders. And if Black had the chance here, he would like to remove exchange this knight with this knight here. He would like to remove these knights, but even this position is quite good. So white played a5. This a5 doesn't matter so much. Black goes rook a to c8. If it was Black to move again, he would probably play this move. Yes, active, good chess with our pieces. Remember, in open positions, activity of the pieces is the most important thing. Don't forget to develop your pieces. So this move was played. Black played knight f to d7, and white went back, rook to e8, knight d4, and g6. It is very clear that Black is never afraid of this move because he controls the squares very well. For example, after this move, we can just go bishop f6 and put the bishop here on g7, and Black has the advantage already. This knight would have been quite bad, and this knight is very powerful. So white was not interested in capturing on e6. He played bishop g1, and Black goes bishop f8. That's a very nice move. Bishop f8 intending bishop g7 to improve the placement of our bishop. The d6 pawn is very little bit weak. White cannot really attack it, but the same goes for the e4 pawn. e4 is also a bit weak. So knight d5, and this is the kind of position that we are interested in. This type of position is usually very good for Black. Our plan is to put the bishop on g7. This time, our tempi are really very good. Black has already played g6 and bishop f8. But even in a position like this, he can go for this move or bishop f8 and put the bishop on g7. So there is one strategical problem for white here, which is the fact that his light square bishop, the bishop on e2, is lacking good prospects. The position can be interesting and unclear. White can win, black can win, nobody knows what will happen. However, usually black stands very well in these positions. So let's see what happened. Bishop g4 was played, and rook a3 is an interesting move, bringing the rook back into play. This is strategically good on one sense, but on the other hand, there are now several weaknesses, and black gains the advantage for different reasons. Now, this is transformation of the advantage. White doesn't have a bad bishop anymore, but he lost time with his queen moving back and forth, and this gives also extra space for black. Previously, there was a knight on d7. Now he may put his queen on d7, and or maybe such moves and so on. So it's not only about strategy, it is a lot more about calculation. Yes, strategy is a general assessment to give us one idea. It should be backed up by concrete calculation all the time. If somebody asks, what is black's idea here? The answer is very clear in these type of positions. Black wants to play on every square along the E5. He wants to make use of the E5 square, the E4 square, E3 square, E2, E1, all of these squares. He can consider doubling the rooks on the open file. Now that he has two knights, he can consider such moves, maybe later, not now, some F5 move, such ideas if it is possible, and so on. Our play is taking place along the E file. That's why in an open position, one may ask, can white go for C4 and B4 and so on? Yes, but this time it is clearly less effective. It can work sometimes, of course, but in general it is less effective. Why? Because this C4, B4 is flank activity while the center is open. And so play by black in the center tends to be better, more important. So this plan with C4 and B4, it works better in more closed positions. Let's see quickly what happened. Queen d8 is interesting. Yes, knight f6. And here black played knight c4 only for concrete reasons. Strategically speaking, black is quite happy to trade one pair of knights. Like this position, for example, is even more improved than before, because black can now include this pawn whenever he wants, since there is no white knight to be planted on e6. And so black, with his central play, is superior. Very good. Let's examine another game. In this version, there are countless games. So let's examine this one. Bishop e3, bishop e6, and f4. So something that needs to be clarified again. We will now talk about the f4 move for white. We have done that again in the past. Let's do it now once again. We will talk about the f4 move for white in the Najdorf in general. What we are going to say is valid, is working, if white has castle short, and even if he has castle long. So there are three situations concerning the move f4. One situation is that black has zero development of this bishop and this knight, and white goes f4, while black has not developed any of his pieces. The bishop on c8 and the knight on b8. Strangely enough, the fact that black has not moved any of his pieces can be used to his advantage. And black can consider b5 now, or knight bd7 first and then b5, let's say here, and b5. And now listen carefully. Let's suppose he plays here and bishop b7. You may have heard me several times talking about the so-called perfect Najdorf setup. This is for black the perfect Najdorf setup. a6, b5, the bishop on b7, knight bd7, knight f6, possibly even rook c8 later, or queen c7, preferably rook c8, But it is very important that white has a weakness on e4. This setup is working not with the pawn on f3, then white would be slightly better, or with the pawn on f2, which will go to f3 later, if necessary. White would have been slightly better. So here, if I put this here, white is probably slightly better. But with the pawn on f4, black has great play. So let's go back once again. An early f4 move. We are in situation number one. This is how I call it, with zero development of this bishop and of this knight. They have not moved. f4 is a mistake, and we use it to our advantage in order to reach the perfect Najdorf setup. For example, after this, as we said, knight b7 or maybe even b5 right away. It's not that black is winning or anything, but he is better. For example, after this, b4, and after this, let's say bishop b7. He cannot even take here because he is losing his knight. Very good. So black has a very good game after f4. This is working even in positions where white is going for long castling. For example, here, e5. Usually we go bishop e6, but this is playable. And now f4 is inaccurate as before. Black will use to his advantage the fact that he hasn't moved any of these pieces. He will go knight b7, and after, let's say, queen f3, b5, here, bishop b7, once again achieving the perfect Najdorf setup with bishop b7, knight b7, knight f6, and a weak e4 pawn, and rook c8 is coming soon. And whenever we can do that, black is always at least equal. Of course, a question will come. Why don't we do this all the time? Why don't we even bother to study the theory of the Najdorf? Try a little bit yourself after white's normal moves. You will see that black is not able to do it. Try it yourself. You will see. If, for example, here black plays this move, can black play knight b7? The answer is no. Can he play b5 intending knight b7 and so? The answer is no again. Very good. So the perfect Najdorf setup leading to an advantage for black can be achieved obviously only if white allows it. So again, f4 here can be called a mistake when we have zero development. Situation number one, let's call it. White played bishop e3. We already know what to do when we see bishop e3. We will play bishop e6. Besides, we didn't have any better move anyway. And now he goes f4. Concerning the move f4, black is half developed. He has only his bishop on e6 and the knight is still on b8. In this situation, we take on f4. He takes with the rook or with the bishop, for example, and we play knight c6 usually. Usually this is the best move, just like in this game. Here, knight c6. Why is this better than knight b7? Because after a knight d4 move, let's say here knight d4 move, we cannot capture the knight. After knight, with a knight on c6, which is the best move, after a knight d4 move, we won't play knight e5. We prefer to capture this knight. That's an even more preferable position for black. And then we will put the other knight on e5. That's why we play knight c6. So, for example, here, knight e5 with very good play for black. Knight here, we take it. And once again, black's idea is to play bishop f6, g6, bishop g7, or maybe even this. And bishop f6 now. And black will be better, or maybe g6, bishop h6, bishop g7, and so on. So let's go back once again. Bishop e6, and now black plays f4. Shall we play queen c7 like Fischer used to play? No, we will take on f4 in this semi-developed situation, semi-developed position, and we will play knight c6 with very good play for black. And finally, there is the third situation. First one is this with zero development. After f4, we don't take it. Second one is this. After f4, we take it. And third one is this. he plays a move, and we develop all of our pieces, and now he plays f4. So surprisingly, in such a position, we usually don't take on f4. We play b5. If you ask your engine, it will tell you that after b5, black is already better, or rook c8, depending on the situation. So this we call situation number 3. We are fully developed. Bishop e6 and knight bd7. So in situation 1 and 3, zero development, we don't capture the pawn. And full development, again, we don't capture the pawn on f4. In the intermediate situation, with only the bishop on e6, after f4, we capture it. This is the general rule. These moves, what I'm describing, tends to be the best all the time. However, we keep our eyes open and we calculate, and this is far more important than general rules. Let's clarify, please, that in situation number 3, when we are fully developed and we don't capture the pawn, we most likely we will capture the pawn at some moment later. If white continues keeping the tension with the pawn on f4, most likely at some moment later we will capture it. Very good. So we described in words this and in examples these 3 situations concerning the move f4 by white. Is this working, this rule, when white goes for long castling? Yes, it is working 100%. So let's see what happened here. Situation number 2, we are half developed. We take on f4 and knight c6. So we take on d4, yes, and knight d7, intending knight d5 with a very good position for black. Knight here, white goes knight d5. We happily take it, and we want to put the bishop on g7. And black has very good play along the e file. Bishop g5 was played, and rook f2. Now black played bishop f6. The answer is no. There is clearly a better move for black. Who will suggest the better move for black instead of bishop f6? What is wrong with bishop f6? Only one thing, that there is a better move. That's the only bad thing about bishop f6. So the best move for black is, of course, this one. Bishop h4. This is the best move because he's forced to play here, and only now we go back to f6, or here intending g6, it doesn't matter. And this g3 long term is a very, very big problem for white. Imagine we will continue playing and playing and playing the game, and look at his second rank. It's very weak. If there was a pawn here closing the second rank, then there is nothing wrong with g3, all good. G3 would have been a useful extra tempo. But when this is missing, look, this square is not safe. There are always checks along the second rank. He cannot play like this. So this g3 is a serious weakness, while here white's king is a lot safer, but not with g3. Now he will be open forever. So remember this detail, which doesn't have to do directly with the Najdorf, but you can get it sometimes in the night. So here and g6 and bishop g7, black is better. And if I put this here, black is even more better. So the game continues, and black's idea should be to play f5, maybe double the rooks on the e file, and so on. This is another playable idea, to trade the pieces and again put the knight on e5 at some moment. White didn't like his position, and he started playing some weak moves, and he lost even faster. Imagine this being here. This would make things even worse. Very good. Save. Okay. Let's continue now with another idea. So that we have enough time to describe all the important ideas. We will now see positions in the Najdorf in the so-called Karpov variation. In other words, white develops, he plays a4 at a good time, not allowing knight c6, knight b4, and he doesn't play f4, he doesn't do anything. Let's see. White goes bishop e2, here, a4, and rook c8. So bishop e7, let's suppose he plays bishop e7, castles and castles. Let's clarify one thing. Actually, let's clarify under a different move order. So let's suppose we play here, which is very good, just like knight bd7, castles and castles. Now, we already talked about f4, we take it and knight c6. We already talked about a4, we go knight c6 and knight b4. So he goes here, and we go knight bd7. We have already talked about f4 now. Situation number 3, we don't take it. We play b5 or rook c8. So far, so good. White plays the right move, which is a4. This is the so-called Karpov system, where white wants very slowly to develop his pieces and stop, prevent b5, prevent d5, and so on. Black has an important positional idea. He wants to do this if he can, and then play here and capture with the rook. When he can do that, he is better. Let's see. For example, a4 is the right move. White plays this, which is a mistake. Now black is in time to play rook c8. Look, a4, knight b6, a very delicate mistake by white, which has been committed several times. Besides, here we are examining deep ideas. Look, and here knight c4, but it's very important to take with the rook. And now black wants to go with his queen to c6. I can do it this way. I can do it this way, even better, or even this way if necessary. So white wants to triple the rooks on the file. For example, after this, we go queen c8, and let's say here, queen c6, we put the other rook here, and white has tremendous play, a lot of pressure, very good. However, with normal play, black is not in position to do that, of course. Otherwise, black would be better by force. So white plays a4, this is the theoretical move, and we are not in time. If rook c8, he plays a5. However, rook c8 is a good move. If knight b6, yes, that's a playable move. Black is now threatening not knight c4, black is threatening rook c8. If white plays any random move, rook c8 comes. But white will play a5 right away, not giving us the time to play rook c8. And so we are forced to take with the bishop, which is less successful. We are not better, in other words, but still black has a great game. This has been played by Kasparov, by Carlsen, and so on, by many other good players. So you will decide what you will do, which plan you want, and knight b6, an early knight b6, but then you are forced to take with the bishop, or rook c8, but then the opponent can stop it and play a5. So let's see what happened in this game. In this game, Sergei Karyakin with the black pieces is playing a very cunning move order and a very early knight bd7, which is allowed by white's move order. And what is the idea? Who can describe the idea with words? What is the idea? The idea is to go for it as quickly as possible for rook c8, knight b6. Very good. That's the idea. So a4 was played and rook c8, and at this moment white can play a5. However, he was afraid of rook takes c3. White hesitated. After this, rook takes c3 is interesting, leading to an unclear position. Of course, black is not forced to play it. He can also play bishop e7 with normal theory. So black got scared, white got scared, and he played queen d2. However, it is black to move here, and he is using the moment to play knight b6. That's it. And now if a5, knight c4, and we take with the rook. White castles. How should black continue here, of course? Very good. We must gather energy. Knight c4 is very premature. We can play it even later. Of course, the move is bishop e7, and if it is black to move again, castle short. Very good. We don't need to play knight c4, bishop e7, because we can play knight c4 later. He played here, and knight c4, it wasn't necessary. He could even castle, but he played knight c4. It's also good. Here, f3, and he castles. Black is slightly better. After queen c7, black is slightly better. And after my preferred move, which is h6 here, stopping any bishop g5 ideas, black is still better after all of these three moves. Let's see what happened in this game. This move was played, and a5. Yes. After this, some tremendous analysis, knight g4, and check, and total chaos. Look what is happening. Bishop c4 checkmate is coming, and black is much better. But in worst case, even this is totally acceptable for black. Even this. So let's see what happened. a5 and queen c8 is the typical move, to go to c6. And knight c1 intending to go to e2 or to d3 and so on. However, here there is a very typical combination. Knight c1 has been played many times in similar situations, and there is, anyway, black was standing very well. Let's say white goes here, I can play h6, and he plays a move like I don't know what, queen c6, this is coming here, and so on. So this move was played, and now white's rooks do not communicate with each other, and this allows d5. How did Karyakin find the move d5? First of all, he knew this idea, but in general, even if he didn't know it, he will consider it, because we always consider this idea in the Najdorf at any move, because it can be good, who knows. Indeed, here, white obviously cannot take on d5 because rook d8 is winning immediately. So black was left with a pair of bishops. He played here. I would have played the bishop to e6, and queen f5. Still black is better. This great move, rook h4. Black was better. The position is far from easy. A lot of calculation is still required. But look, this bishop on c6 is a real monster. It would have also been very good here. So black went on to win the game. Very good. Let's discuss this idea a bit further. Just a second. Let's check this game. So let's see what happened. Bishop e7. I see bishop e3. I play bishop e6. He castles. We castle. Queen d2, because if a4, don't forget knight c6. Queen d2, knight bd7. a4, knight b6, and now white must play a5, but he played this move. And rook c8, black is already slightly better. a5, knight c4, and this is what happened. Queen c8, h6 which is also good. Queen c8 is good, and after this move we play d5. After bishop g5 we do this, and again black stands a bit better. Anyway, h6 was played, which is in general my favorite move, intending queen c8, rook a4, queen c8, and the pieces are coming, and finally d5. Black is easily better in this endgame. He even played this nice idea, and he has a winning endgame, a pawn up with two powerful bishops here, and later black managed to win this game with very nice technique, and it wasn't really very difficult. Let's check now this game, high-level game, Yakovenko-Carlsen. Of course, we know Carlsen, but Yakovenko is also a super high-level grandmaster. His rating in 2009 was 2742. And Carlsen's rating was 2772. So let's see what happened. Queen d2, of course, such players will not make mistakes in the move order. And after a4, black has two main ideas. Rook c8 when white will play a5 and then the game continues, or knight b6 when white again will play a5. Carlsen played knight b6 and knight c4, and he takes with the bishop, which is less ideal than rook takes, but you cannot force the position with rook takes c4 because there black is better. So rook f to d1 and rook c8 was played. Another natural move would have been h6. So f3, maybe it's a little bit slow. Rook c6 for black and queen c8 again with similar ideas, although black's setup is a little bit, let's say, less effective. He still stands fine. After this, bishop takes. He cannot really take with the knight, unfortunately, because of this. So he has to take with the bishop. And rook c4. Is our rook going to be in trouble on c4? Is white maybe going to capture this rook one day with knight d2? It's really impossible. No. So here e4 was played finally. Rook takes e4. Black has very good play. He had the winning position. The game kept on going. And at some moment, he made a terrible mistake. And white was winning all of a sudden. But then white made another mistake. And black finally, Carlsen finally won in the end. This is how chess is played in all levels, even at the highest one. There are mistakes. So here, g6. Yes, we remember this type of game where they got to it all of a sudden, where there is play along the e file. Here, the bishop went to h6. Why did Carlsen put his bishop on h6? Because he calculated specifically. That's why. Yes, and here, and knight g4. So white was better. We will not examine. Let's quickly examine what happened here. So here he played bishop takes c3, which according to the engine is a big mistake. That was a fairly easy win for white. Let's describe that. Rook takes c3, taking with a b pawn is awful. So queen takes, and after queen f5, black will win this game quite fast because white has a weak king and white's pawns are scattered all over the board. The a5 pawn now is not fixing something. It's mainly a weakness with queens on the board. And the same goes for these c4 and b2 pawns. He wants to enter and combine threats against the black king and against black's pawn structure. Carlsen later, he blundered, but later he won the game. So let's examine now something else. Let's examine a situation where for some reason black has a dark square bishop and white doesn't have. So here is the situation in this game. Bishop g5 was played, knight bd7 is playable now, and bishop e6 is also playable. After this, white must take on f6 right away, forcing black to take with the bishop. If white doesn't take, then after this mistake by white, castling short, then knight bd7, the knights are tied together, and now the bishop on g5 is misplaced, and the knight on f3 is also misplaced. This was supposed to threaten knight g5. So black is already slightly better here. White took here, but you see, black will take with the knight this time, of course, controlling the d5 square. Black has a considerably big advantage. And now listen. For example, rook e1. So in positions, some players have already heard me saying that, in positions in the Najdorf where for some reason black does have the dark square bishop and white doesn't have it. A very, very, very important idea for black is to transfer the bishop to this diagonal, since there is no opponent, or these two go together. Yes, I can play here. If there is some tactic, I can play here. So these two diagonals go together. And another idea, which is a bit less common, is to transfer the bishop to this diagonal, depending on the situation. So here, a very basic idea for black is this. The move rook c8 was played. Bishop f1, black is already better. So queen b6 is very interesting here, and queen b4, black is preparing the ground. Black could also play something like this. Queen c7, and look, for example, h3, queen c5, what a nice move. Queen c5. The idea is bishop d8 and move the bishop somewhere here with an advantage for black. Let's suppose bishop d8. Yes, don't forget. Let's suppose that here bishop a5 is not good, although it is good and black is better. So let's suppose it's not good. We will put the bishop here temporarily, then bring the rook here, and then put the bishop on b6 or on a5. We will lose one tempo. Very good. So this is what happened in this game. Black found a way, and a very effective way, to put the bishop on d8 and then on b6 or on a5. This is a huge advantage. g6, okay, bishop b6, or maybe bishop f5, depending on the situation. This is a huge advantage for black. So d5 now is very good, since white has withdrawn her pieces. If, let's say, white plays a move like this one and there are no tactics, I would like to play this move, strengthening the position, maybe something like this, maybe even here for now, stopping knight g5, and at some moment go for d5 and so on. Should I sacrifice here? No, it's completely unnecessary. Very good. So in this game, knight d1 was played, and black strikes with d5. He got a big advantage, and he won this fine game. Very good. Let's see this example here, where again white gave his dark square bishop. And here, so black played rook c8. One may say that if you try to do this time, I will play a5. Still, it is playable. For example, after this a5, we can play b6 here. And after some moves, transfer the bishop here. Or there is another very interesting idea. Look at this move, queen b8. For example, he plays something like this. The bishop is coming here, and after a5, we go b5. He takes it, and bishop takes, and again, black has very good play. The a6 pawn is a little bit weak, but the same goes for these pawns here. So black has a great game. However, he chose another idea. He played rook c8. Let's see. Queen c7, a5. Now, the plan with putting the bishop to c7 is very slow. There is another idea to do this and here and here and here, but it is way too slow. It's not objective. However, there is something else. Black played bishop f8, and especially after rook d2, he played g6. This idea is more rare, transferring the bishop to h6. Queen f1 was played and bishop h6. Let's suppose that white plays h3. We can play bishop h6. However, in this position, I would like to include this move. Now I am done with such threats, like if I go somewhere, bishop g4 and so on, I am done with it. I play h4. And finally, I develop this bishop to h6 with a big advantage for black. Of course, it goes without saying, or maybe with saying, that after knight d5, black is better after both captures. For example, this is nice and simple, and now we go here, and we transfer our pieces, and we want to go f5 later and win the game, of course. And instead of knight takes, this is also very good for black. And let's say we play a move like this. Now we rearrange our pieces here or here. And again, we go for f5. And black is again much better, simply because this is a terrible piece. Very good. This is what happened. And black won the game. We see the other plan, a bit more rare, of transferring the bishop to h6 when the opponent doesn't have a dark square bishop. Very good. For example, this plan, under circumstances, can be played even if white does have his dark square bishop. Let's check this nice game. So here, knight bd7. Can I play knight c6 here? Absolutely not. After this here and a4, can I play knight c6? The answer is no. After this, he jumps knight d5, and the best I can do is to take it and go back and lose some tempi. So we are, however, dealing with something else. They play and play, knight bd7, very natural stuff. a4, queen c7, knight d2, and look at this fine idea, rook f to c8 here, and queen c5. That's a magnificent idea. The plan after this move is to go queen b4. Besides, don't forget that white's idea is in fact knight e3. He played all these moves, knight d2, knight f1, in order to play knight e3. This move, he interferes by himself with his own plan. We will put the queen on b4, and after queen c1, the time finally has come. Black has been preparing it for a long time to play bishop d8. After bishop d8, the next move is going to be, for example, bishop b6, which is good for black to trade the dark square bishops. It can also be bishop a5 after calculation, of course. Yes, it's not certain 100% that bishop a5 is good. So this is what black did, queen c5. Knight e3 was played, and bishop d8. Black played knight f5, which is a bad move, and after d5, he was worse. Black could have played bishop d2, and white, I mean, and now black can play b5 with a very good position, but he can also play bishop b6 with a very good fighting position. You see, we carried out this maneuver, although white does have his dark square bishop. And additionally, black can also play bishop to a5. Very good play for black. Maybe we will include this g6 move now to get done with all these knight f5 stories. Maybe even h5. And black has a very fighting game. For example, here we can consider going back or just taking here, and so on. Yes, we can play all sorts of moves now. Let's say here, intending knight c5, and so on. And there is interesting play. So by covering these ideas, and with one or two more ideas, which I will include in the PGN, we have covered up to a very big extent that several of the typical ideas of the Najdorf with short castling for both sides. We have seen very basic, very important ideas to clarify them in our minds. I will add also like one or two games in this version of the so-called Sveshnikov Najdorf. Sorry, not this one. So-called Sveshnikov Najdorf, which is this one here. This version, where it resembles a Sveshnikov, and black tolerates a knight on d5 for some time, but white's other pieces, besides the knight on d5, which is good, all of white's other pieces are very bad and inactive. And black usually goes for g6 and f5, playing around this knight on d5, and he is in fact better. After, you see, the knight cannot even go back because of rook c6 protecting everything. White is left without plan. Such type of positions, called the Sveshnikov-Najdorf, have been played several times, but mainly by players who don't really know the Najdorf very well. Okay, this game was played by two super grandmasters of the past, Averbach against Petrosyan. Averbach knew the Najdorf with white, but in that game he was very young, and the game was already played like so long time ago, 1959, and there was not possibly such super high level knowledge of this opening. So enough with the Najdorf of with the ideas of short castling. We will now take half an hour break, and we will start studying different ideas. In very rare occasions, you can see something similar, not because I chose it, but because the opening is like this. We will start studying Najdorf with opposite castling, white castles long, trying to give checkmate, and black castles short, trying to do exactly the same. So thanks for watching. I will see you in half an hour.